As you probably guess, Mr. Seroy is getting all his buses ready for school tomorrow. So he called at 6:15 and said what to do in this morning. So glad to be with you again. Today, we'll call roll, please.
Mr. Seroy, Ms. Weber,
Present.
Mr. Stauffenberg, Mr. Vickery, Mr. Tholen, Ms. Polk, Mr. Snipes, Ms. Evans, Mr. Payton, Ms. Peters, Ms. Dunbar, Ms. Parker, Mr. Wheeler, Mr. Lear. We have a quorum.
Under public comment, we have one request for public comment. Diane Arp, please. Thank you.
Hi there. Good morning. I'm Diane Arp. I've spoken before to you guys in the past. I've been functioning on a consultant basis with the recently formed. Is this thing on? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. The recently formed Animal Welfare Coalition in Kankakee County, and that's made up of shelters, rescues, rehabbers within the county that meet regularly. Sure. To discuss animal issues and ways to improve animal welfare within Kankakee County. At the April 18th Community Services meeting, several members of the animal welfare community spoke to you about proposing the formation of a Citizens Advisory Board, which would be comprised of segments of population throughout Kankakee County, whether they be animal advocates, what have you, but just to get a group together that would address animal welfare issues and their commitment to improve. So it's on a bigger scale than our coalition. Chairman Wheeler, we were happy to see that you were open to that idea. The committee was open to the idea as well, and we're very grateful. We, in a spirit of cooperation, we invited State's Attorney Rowe and Chairman Wheeler to speak at our Animal Welfare Coalition meeting in May, which went very well. We had provided to Chairman Wheeler documentation, things that the coalition had worked on, sample bylaws, rationale for the Citizens Advisory Board, how things were, the advisory boards were run in other states, just justification for the board. And on behalf of the Animal Welfare Coalition, we'd like to say thank you to Chairman Wheeler for taking that ball and running with it, and for the committee to support the proposals. With that in mind, I was wondering, and some of these questions might be answered during the section when the advisory board is discussed, but some of the things that the coalition was wondering was how were the applicants selected? What were the selection criteria? How many applications were received? How was it decided who would be on the selection committee that decided on who would be on the advisory board? Things like term length of the people serving, how long will they serve, and how best for not only the Animal Welfare Coalition, but for just citizens within Kankakee County to address their concerns and ideas to the advisory board. So I'm hoping some of those questions will be addressed during that section. But we just wanted to say thank you for your support, and for Chairman Wheeler for taking the ball and running with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Under minutes, you see a whole list of minutes from 2016 and then last meeting. So these you possibly printed and read and know what's in them. But at this point, we'd like to combine all those. Would someone make a motion to combine all the minutes for approval, please? Mr. Vickery first, and Ms. Parker was second. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor of approving all those minutes with this motion, say aye. Any opposed, say aye. The motion's carried. Next, we have the report recorder, Lori Gadbois. The monthly report is available. Would someone move to accept that report? Ms. Dunbar, second, please. Mr. Payton. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Any questions on the report? pretty good month. Not every month is going to be like that, unfortunately. The other item I have for discussion and to bring you up to date on is the House Bill 3036, which, as you know, was passed through both houses, is on the governor's desk. It was sent to the governor on June 28th. So, still isn't signed by the governor. I checked as late as last night to see if anything is on the calendar to be signed for us, but it's not. So, from what I understand and in communication with the governor's office, after 60 calendar days, if it is not signed by the governor, it is automatic law. So, on August 27th is the date I came up with. If we want to be realistic, I guess give it one more day and say August 28th will be automatic law. So what does that mean for us? So that means then we need to follow the process of this legislation that was written and put that out on public review for 30 days. And then after 30 days, we can enact the fee increase to the predictable fee that was determined based on the cost study that was conducted for my office. So, because I like to do things like in order, like not mid-month, because that's really not very prudent. I would say the month of September, it's on public public review, and we can do, because the way county board falls, if we want to do it, and it would be discussion with the chairman, either from executive to county board, it would really probably be a November 1 in action. Because then I will start getting notices out to all the respective customers. We have banks, title companies, attorneys, website, press release, all that.
Does anyone have any comments? Mr. Vickery?
16.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Lori, do we need to enact something, or have we?
Well, no, you have not, because we've been waiting. The governor had to sign this first, or it has to become law. Then there is, I do believe, a resolution or an ordinance, depending on how your county, because it was written for the whole state. That will have to be done, and I do believe the state's attorney's office already has that ready. But before that can be approved by the county board, it has to be on public record or public notice for 30 days.
Okay, thank you.
So yes and no.
Yeah. So we have to enact it, but we have to wait to the proper
Right.
time.
You have to do notice.
Thank
yes.
you.
And you take care of the due notice part?
Well, I'm going to do my part in terms of communication through my office. The county board part will have to be done through the county board part.
It's ironic we talked about this the last time I sat up here, isn't it? But I'm glad to hear your news today. That's
Yeah,
good.
well, I'm happy and sad. It's unfortunate we couldn't get something done a little more, trying to think of a really nice word. Sure, let's go with expeditiously. Swiftly. But we're going to follow the process, and that's what the process is. So we'll need to have that for the next county board meeting.
And the good
Okay.
news is you're ready with your rates ready to
We're
publish
ready
them.
with everything. Public comment, questions and concerns will be the next thing, but that's okay. We're good with that too. And we have a good cost study to, show reasons and things like that. So, okay.
Anything else, Ms. Gadboy?
Nothing? Very good. Everyone enjoy your day.
Next, let's go to the assessor's report. Eric Blair, I have a motion to approve his report. Mr. Solon, second for the report. Ms. Peters, I wasn't going to call you anything else. All in favor of approving the report, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say aye. Motion's carried.
Right or left? You make it work. All right. Swing around.
Morning, folks.
Morning.
I have a few things to go over with you this morning. The assessment office has been really busy since the last time we spoke. This is the time of year when our department is really busy with a lot of different things as we get ready to publish and notify assessments. So bear with me as I go through some of the things that we've completed in the last month. A little closer. Better now? Okay, thank you. Bear with me while I go through a little bit of what we've gone through so far in the last month and what's coming up here very shortly. I wanted to notify the committee that I did receive the return of township assessment books from every township, and they're all in the system. We've actually, what we typically look for is some irregularities in their transmissions of assessments, and ask questions of them and then get those responses back. We've gotten the responses back from all of the townships. So we're comfortable going ahead and moving to the supervisor of assessments level, which is a time for me to make any changes that I need to, such as wind energy formula valuations and things that need to be done. And that's what I'm working on this week here is trying to make sure I get through all of those things. We did, just as a reminder to you, this is a sort of a new process that we started last year. We imported quite a bit of assessment data as opposed to trying to type them all in. Hand typed 30,000 assessment changes as we did several years ago takes a long time to do. And we were able to successfully last year work with Cheryl Enright from Kankakee Community College on writing a translation so that some of the township data can be imported directly into DevNet, and it worked last year very well, and I think it worked even better this year. I was really happy with the way that turned out. So it worked really well, saves us a little bit of time. It allows us to take a little bit more time to vet and make sure that all of those assessment changes are appropriate and they're in the right places. So that went really well. I've already talked about the reconciliation of the questions with the townships. So, and then the fact that I put in the wind energy changes already. So what's coming up now is the supervisor of assessments level. Like I said, I'll make any changes that I need to make. And then my plan is to hopefully start the process of equalization of each township Friday, and it would probably spill into Monday. Because it takes usually more than just a little bit than one business day to get that done. Once I get that finished, we'll start to print the notices, the assessment change notices, and due to the fact that we don't have the folder inserter machine anymore, I will be sending out that project. We're going to print the notices in-house. It's a little bit more cost effective, and I'm assured that we will get the best postage rate if we print them in-house and have the barcode show up in the window of the envelope. So it's getting the best rate for the county possible. And I'll be coordinating with that company, that third party, to fold and insert those notices very shortly here. In fact, I plan to talk to them today about the timeline and make sure we get the notices to them in a timely fashion, because my hope is to do the same as we did in the last 2 years, 2015 and 16 both. We published the second Tuesday of September, and that would be my hope again this year. Not really a hope, it's not set in stone yet, but I feel really confident that we're going to get there again this year. Published the second Tuesday of September. That's a really big thing for us. Once we do that, it will trigger, excuse me, it will trigger, as most of you are aware, a 30-day window where we will start to accept appeals on the assessment changes. And so we'll be working through the acceptance of those appeals and the board of review process that follows after that. And that really is what our calendar and schedule looks like all the way through, probably excluding the Board of Review part that's going to take to the end of the year. That's what we're going to be working on all the way through the third week of October or so, is the acceptance of those appeals, logging them in, scheduling hearings, that kind of thing. So the only other thing I had for you this morning is just to talk a little bit about the solar energy subcommittee participation that has taken place. And I know I've talked a little bit at this committee about this. I think it's worth noting that Delbert Skimmerhorn has really been a great asset to the group for us. He's not in the assessment part, of course, but he's provided a really good separate perspective from a zoning and plat officer perspective. So those of you that might be on tomorrow's PZA committee, I think you should know how much help he's been to myself and the committee of assessors around the state, supervisors of assessments around the state, as we try to craft the best language possible to get this done. So I'd like to recognize him, and actually kind of blew past it. I also wanted to mention to you folks, I'm really, really grateful and thankful for the 5 staff members that I have downstairs, because without them, there's no way we get through everything that we've already done in the last month and what's coming here in the next 4 to 6 weeks as we get ready to publish and notify and get through that Board of Review. They really do a tremendous job, and they deserve a lot of credit. So with that, I'll open the floor. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Mr. Payton?
Mr. Chairman, I just had a question on the assessor. Since Pembroke did not have anyone on the ballot to run as an assessor, how are their work getting done?
Well, at this point, the election that took place in April, the new person, if there was one, would be seated on January 1 of 2018. So the assessor has not vacated yet.
Okay.
And I believe there are provisions for the township to potentially appoint someone if they need to. Some of those things are being discussed now, and I don't know the finality of that, who's going to end up taking that on January 1 of 2018. As a fallback position, I would say that there is a potential that if Basu would be willing to accept a reappointment, I think he's already qualified and ready to go.
Right.
He could be reappointed. I don't think at this point that we're in significant danger that there would not be an assessor at all out there.
Okay.
Mr.
Thank you.
Snipes? Yeah, thank you. Good question.
A follow-up question, probably in along those lines, but a little bit abstract, is there's been conversation. I believe there's a bill that's been in the House. Don't know the status of it, where they're trying to eliminate the township tier of government, and under that, we have the assessors who assess property. If that was to occur, I know the counties would be affected, but to what degree? Who would take that responsibility if that unit of government is eliminated?
Sure, this is kind of a multi-phased answer, so I'm going to try to address each part of it individually. One, my understanding of the piece of legislation that's floating out there, and this has been something that's been talked about, I think, for years, but I've talked to the legislative arm of the group, the County Assessment Officials Association, a few times about this. He's shown a map to the group that says that it only affects, I believe the number, and I should know this before I actually say it, but I believe it's 13 townships throughout the state of Illinois. None of those townships are here in Kankakee. That's my understanding at the moment. So the one that I'm aware of anyway would not actually affect us immediately. I want to kind of address that first. Now, if you go down the road of what would happen if township government was either consolidated to a large degree or eliminated in some way, we would then have to, my assumption is we would have to take that over here at the county and At the moment, we don't have the resources to do that with the current staffing level and things like that. Go ahead, please.
The bill, Senate Bill 3, was signed by the governor today.
Okay.
So it is law now. That most of that is accurate. You have to be, or wait, is it Senate? Yeah, I think it was SB 3. I read it this morning on my
I'll have
way
to go back now,
when I got
so-
into the office. Not on my way into the office, I almost said. Is the sheriff here? But it was signed. It is law now. It is. The townships can put a referendum out to eliminate themselves or to combine with other townships, excuse me. If you're coterminous with or largely coterminous with your municipality, you can put it out for referendum to dissolve, as long as the municipal government agrees to take over the duties that are vacated and the roads and things like that. So
Sure.
in the case of, like, just use Kankakee Township as an example, the municipality, Kankakee, would have to agree to assess the properties. Okay, and they would have to agree to take any other duty that the township was doing along those same lines, and the county would have to assume the road district outside of the municipality. Does that make sense? So there's lots of other details in there, but that's the main gist of it. They basically amended the county's code and inserted all of this stuff in there.
Oh.
So I read it once, and now I got to go back and make sure that I've got the actual full scope of it, but it goes to referendum to the people. The township can't vote to do it themselves. It has to go to referendum.
I'm glad you interjected that. Excuse me. I'd like to go back to my office and actually review Senate Bill 3 before I go and make any further comments on the ramifications, because there may be additional language that I wasn't aware of in this particular attempt to make those things happen.
When you said 13, was that 13 are connected to municipalities? Is that how they're 13?
My understanding was, and this was about a year ago that I saw that map. It was, for example, I'll throw out one example. Capital Township, which is in Springfield, is largely the same boundary as Springfield itself. So that would be one that could be potentially dissolved. And I think, again, like Chairman Wheeler said, that's through, I believe, referendum to make it happen anyway. But like I said, I really don't want to comment too much more here until I'm able to review Senate Bill 3, and I'll certainly do that, put that on my list of things to do here shortly, and see what's in there.
Is there any other question? Yeah. The other is just a comment that how wonderful for you that all the assessors had their books in on time. That hasn't always happened for you, so that's really compliments to them.
Yeah, it's a big thank you to the townships. We have I think a much more positive relationship today than what it was maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I shouldn't have stopped at the 5 staff members downstairs, because without the help of the township assessors to get those numbers to us in a timely manner, none of this would be possible either. So it's a huge collaborative effort, and they do, as township assessors, deserve a lot of credit as well. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thanks for your report, Aaron.
Have a nice day.
You too. Turn next to. Next on our agenda is the county clerk, Mr. Clark. Come forward. Someone move to accept Mr. Clark's report. Mr. Tholen, Ms. Dunbar, any discussion? All in favor of accepting that report, say aye. Any opposed, say aye. Motion's carried.
Morning. And there were no questions on the monthly report.
Don't have any questions, and approved it unanimously.
Just a few items, maybe before we get into the tax discussion, just a couple of housekeeping things. We did have a good session at Bears Camp, and want to thank Olivet and Chicago Bears for their support of our voter registration booth. They're great people to work with, and it's a free service that we're allowed to do. So it worked out well. Updating the, I think we had mentioned previously, or we had included in the comprehensive financial services report. Everybody get a chance to read that? Good. We mentioned that we're going to do images of the county board resolutions, and all of those images from 1979 to today for the county board resolutions have been updated. Dan has loaded those in. They've been scanned, they've loaded in, and we've proofed them through quality control checks. So we'll talk about that maybe next month when it should be up and running. So I think it's a very transparent process for everyone that hopefully it'll work out good. It's searchable. It's an archive system that we're putting on archiving, and so it's a really positive thing. I think there was mention, I don't know did you want to discuss the TIF funding issue, or that was mentioned at the board? I don't know. Yeah. Or Dr. Murphy, or I think it was brought up. I don't know.
Okay. Mr. Lair, are you 15?
Madam Chairman, I was intending to discuss that briefly under new business, Bruce.
Okay. Well, I'll hang around for new business if there are any questions then. I wanted to just discuss taxes. We don't talk about that a lot. We had mentioned in our financials report on page 24 some of the things that we do on delinquent properties. So I wanted to make the committee aware of some issues that I think are some important just for information. After the treasurer completes the sale of unpaid property taxes, those delinquencies are turned over to the county clerk's office, where our functions generally ministerial. We simply follow the property tax code and the collection of those delinquent funds, the distribution of those funds to the tax buyers, and processing many of the things that you see on page 24 of the financial services report. Carla Anderson, Carla, could you maybe come to the table or something? Carla is charged with the responsibility of tax redemptions, and I asked her to complete a report on a piece of property that came to my attention most recently that I think is a financial burden for the county that I want you to be aware of, but it's certainly a burden to our office in terms of the work that is done to track these properties, in terms of the lost fees that we have on many of these properties. And I think a lot of the information that Carla put together is pretty eye-opening. If you'd look, and by the way, we also looked, and there are, in terms of how many parcels are there, how many parcels are open to date, redeemable that we work with and track, there are 1,650 parcels with a total value of $2.5 million. Some of those are redeemed. I mean, some of those are tax buyers have paid. These are not redeemed. But out of those 1,650 parcels, the county trustee holds 904 parcels that those are fees that are not collected as of yet. There are also subsequents in the amount of $1.9 million that are added to these redemption amounts. So it's a sizable amount of properties, and it seems to the challenges, I think, for me, seem to be increasing in terms of the numbers that more and more are going on, and more sale and errors are occurring. You can look on the back of that sheet where I broke this down, and it gives you the total number of sale and errors. I know the treasurer has brought up the issue of sale and errors that he's tasked with in terms of processing. Certainly, our office has some responsibility in doing that. I would point out, though, that this used to be, I think at one time the treasurer used to be a part of this committee. Those have changed. So now, instead of having a formal setting, we've still worked in an informal setting on tax meetings with the assessor, with the treasurer, with the county clerk, and maybe to address some of these issues, we need to maybe have a little more of a formal setting. In addition to those 1,650 parcels that are still open out there to be collected, there are 1,784 parcels from 2013. And Carla, if I don't say this exactly right, where are you? Speak up, would you? Okay, because she's has a firm hand on these. There are 1,784 parcels that are can still be some action taken, whether it's a deed or a sale in error. So we're talking about a lot. Now, what happens to if you look on the handout? What happens to a particular parcel? And this doesn't happen on all of them, but a person came in to our office and said, "Look, this is a property next. It's a nuisance property that's next to the individual where it's neglected, and it was a complaint about it." So we started looking into this parcel, and if you take a look, we did a little history on it, and we don't have time to do this on all parcels, but this will show the property in 2002 initially was purchased by a tax buyer who paid $1,054.25 in taxes, and there was $85.63 in costs and penalties. That was redeemed in March of 2004. Somebody came in, law title came in, and paid a total amount of $11.84. We got $3 on the redemption for that year. That's when our fees were $3. 2003 taxes were paid on time. 2004 taxes were purchased by a company in 2005. The 2005, 6, and 7 taxes were added to that, which they can do by law. And the amount that was paid by the buyer in taxes was $8,804 plus $1,234 in cost and penalty. A deed was taken, but because the taxes were not redeemed, I mean, the buyer took a deed on properties because he had paid the taxes on it. Because it was not redeemed, we lost our, at that time, $8 clerk fee, which was not collected. But in 2008, taxes were paid on time. But now if we get into 2011, the parcel you can see the parcel was redeemed. Taxes weren't paid, parcel was redeemed. We collected our clerk fee, and the remaining amount was distributed to the tax buyer. In 2010, the taxes were purchased by another investor. In 2011, the taxes were added as a subsequent. The amount paid by the buyer in taxes was $4,448, $288 in costs and penalties. A sale in error was processed in February of 2014. Therefore, the tax was refunded to the tax buyer, and $88 was not collected. Which was our new cost redemption fee. On this one property, if you go into 2012, it was again purchased, but if you look in 2013, 14, and 15, those properties were not redeemed, and they're currently in open status. Nothing's been done. There's a period of time that people wait before a sale in error is filed. The 15s, I think the county trustee holds. So probably what will happen, I would imagine, if I could guess, and maybe Carla, you could add what else might happen, but probably will happen with what's in blue, and we won't get our fees, is that'll either go to sale in error. I doubt if they'll redeem it. The property then would go to the county trustee, and ultimately they would just simply sell that at the auction for a minimum bid of $600. Is that fair to say, Carla?
That's correct.
Okay. So that's looking down the road as to what's happening with this property. And, certainly, the point of it is, you know, we've invested a lot of time in tracking all of these properties. We're losing costs. In this one, you know, we're going to lose $438 in fees. It doesn't happen to all of the properties, but I wanted to make you aware of some of the things that are involved in the redemption process, and point out some of the concerns in terms of, I think the treasurer has echoed this. Now, you know, certainly taxpayers are important for the process. They got to buy these properties, they hold on to them for the interest and maybe get a tax deed. But I think there's probably a lot of maybe loose ends that need some more attention to in terms of addressing some of these concerns that are neglected property. Carla, what did I leave out on that? What points did I leave out on that?
About the selling errors. What
Could you do a microphone?
refunded?
She's on. You're on.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go
Those
ahead.
selling errors that the tax buyer get, and then their money is refunded to them. A lot of times with interest. That's refunded back to them.
Yeah, and that's why your sale and error fund is short or getting hit on, because there's more and more of these properties.
Thank you. So I guess maybe what I'm hearing, you think the solution needs to be worked on really outside of committee, and to have separate meetings on what the recommendations are and how to tie up all of these loose ends. And I see where you're going with this, because it's really, we're in a never-ending cycle of, and sooner or later the kitty is not going to be, of money is not going to be able to keep up with this. And we're there really already. We've already seen it, just cleaning up the mess that we had from the previous years. So,
And not to mention the loss in property tax
Right.
taxes to collected.
right.
Now, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Would you want like an official subcommittee to assist you in this, or is this something that you think that as department heads, you guys can all get together and kind of bring something back to this committee?
You know, and I appreciate that question, because I'm not. I have some thoughts on it. You know, we spent the assessor and the treasurer and I, and being new, he asked a lot of questions, so you start digging deeper and deeper. But we've spent a lot of time in the last 9 months on tax issues. I think Eric can attest to that, whether they be the resolutions that have been processed that includes the recorders, the county board. You know, the tax is a process. I don't think we have the adequate resources between the treasurer's office and my office to do the thorough job to follow that. We are shifting, and over the last 9 months, after we've gotten out of the election cycle, you know, Carla and Linda used to do elections here and vital records here, so we're trying to shift the work so that we get back to more focus on taxes. So we're slowly doing it, but it's not speedy. I would suggest a couple of things. I would suggest that and I've talked to the treasurer about this, and I think he's suggested this also. You just don't get that conversation in one setting, and I don't know how many of you are on finance, but I did discuss it with the treasurer, and he is, you'll have to ask him how he feels about it. But I think it's important that you review the contract with the county trustee. That's a responsibility of the county board. I think the last time that contract was reviewed, if I'm guessing right, was 2007. I think probably what they're finding is by the time they have an auction and have a minimum bid of $600, by the time you disperse all those fees, and we don't get that fee, there's nothing left to go into the general fund and to cover the cost. So you might want to consider raising the minimum bid on auction property. And that would be a function of the county board. Reviewing the contract with the county trustee, because right now the county is relying on the county trustee to handle these delinquent properties. Everything that's not bid on by a taxpayer goes to the county trustee. I think there's another thing that you can do. I think that there's a Senate bill, Senate Bill 586 right now, I think right now it's in rules. It was sponsored by Senator Jason Barrickman, that would allow, and this is just a suggestion, that would allow the properties. The problem that you get into is when the treasurer, when these sale and errors occur and then they go back on as a forfeiture. And we just did get an opinion from the state's attorney that allows us to put our redemption fee on the forfeiture because it has gone to tax sale. So just now, August 1st, we're going to start collecting our redemption fee on forfeitures. And that's based on an opinion from the state's attorney. So you got to include the help with the state's attorney on it. But what this Senate bill would do is any property that goes back on as a forfeiture wouldn't be offered for tax sale. It would go straight to the county trustee or a designee of the county. It amends the property tax code and provides that cases where improvements have been sold for certain reasons, the court may order assignment of the certificate of purchase to the county collector or the delinquent tax agent for pursuing of that. That's another thing you can do. So it's legislation, it's review of the county board. And I think the county trustee or the county treasurer, I think Mr. Africano was considering asking and I don't want to get into his business. I don't want to be the county treasurer, but I think he was going to talk to the county trustee about bringing in a discussion. So you might want to talk to him about have that. I don't know if it's committee work or if that's a more structured committee that maybe we can expand on, that would include maybe county board and state's attorney and trustee. I think he would be a lot of help. But you got to have the time to do that. So, it's a lot of money. I wanted to make you aware of it. Is it Ben Franklin that says there's nothing certain but death and taxes? So I guess we got to talk about it, right?
Anything else? Any other comments? Please, Mr. Vickery. Number 16.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Bruce. Is this county unique in this issue? Do we know that?
No.
We are not unique.
No. Okay. Where do we rank among other counties? I don't know.
Okay. What issue? How have they solved that issue in other counties?
Some are more aggressive, and they devote the time and energies and expertise. The DuPage County has a revenue department in the county clerk's office, and that's what they do. They go after these because there seems to be some money there. Others people, if somebody has, what do other counties do, Carla? Some other counties are just very aggressive about it, and they work well together in terms of, I don't know how successful they are. We haven't really had the time to evaluate it, but that's what some counties do.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anything else, please?
Real quick, I looking at sale and errors, we do have a lot here. As far as sale and errors go, we were looking at that at one point when we were talking about another situation. Well, I can't talk specifically about what other counties had. We did do some spot checks around, and we are in the higher tier of sale and errors here in this county. So some have 14, 15 a year, and we were up around 200, 300, 175, so it's exponential. There's I think there was 4 or 5 counties that saw that were similar to us, but the rest were a lot lower. So,
Mr. Snipes.
Yes. In some areas, some of the properties don't sell. So I'm wondering if you raise it, what would be the I guess the projected fee or projected amount to raise it to. That would be my one of my chief concerns. Is there anything under the law that allows us to attach fees, or in other areas where you can recoup that cost, maybe on the front end or the back end or in between. Don't know as to the laws. But one of the things that I have that I think is a pet peeve is that we have properties here. Case in point, there's one next to my property. I know the lady she's made a transition. She's been gone. She had a niece living there with her. I guess none of them want to take the house, so that house still has the stuff in it. Then there's a window that's broken. Nothing is being done, and when you check, it's going to be on the tax rolls, but 3 years later. And so as a result, it goes into deterioration. It allows gangs to come in and other people to come in, take all the copper or whatever it is out of the house. So therefore, by the time it hits a tax sale, you got a dilapidated, almost destroyed property, versus if we could catch it up on the front end and someone would just go ahead and be able to take it up. And I don't think there's laws favorable in that particular area, at least that we don't know of.
Yeah, well, I in response to some of your questions and comments, I think it's up to the county board it's up to the county board to decide the minimum bid. And in terms of steps that have been taken, I think there's been a lot of progress by the treasurer, a lot of help and support with the assessor, a lot of time devoted by the county clerk in terms of catching some of these steps on the front end. He's taken steps, I think, to identify parcels that should have never been placed on sale. That'll reduce some of the sale and errors, whether they be municipal properties or lien properties. I think he's working on that, but that's the question for the treasurer. But yeah, I think you're right. If you can invest some time to catch it on the front end. And I think the answer is you've got to involve all parties. Mm-hmm. You've got to involve the county trustee. You've got to involve the, where the state's attorney county board to formulate that. And I'd be happy to continue that discussion. But
now with the elevation of fees, I know that we're saying the county can raise them, but certainly the county would have to take at least some advice as to where those fees will be raised so that you can recoup the adequate cost. So I don't know if there's an ad hoc committee or something, or is there some area of review so you would know?
Well, we did Bellwether. We did a Bellwether cost study, and these are statutory fees, and the only way you can raise those fees are with a cost study, which we did, and so we raised them. On the handout where you saw they were $3, they were raised eventually over the years, up to $83. So those cost fees were at what they are. It's the issue of collection. So
that's what I'm saying. But I'm talking about the aggregate amount of moving the bid from the 600. Where would that bid have to go to kind of ensure that you're going to get, you want to be able to recoup all versus losing?
Yeah. Well, that's what we would have to evaluate and study and assess to see what you wanted to do. But I think that is maybe something that needs to be, continued to discuss. So.
Anything else? Please, Mr. Vickery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a suggestion to this committee, and let's move this on to finance, and let's get Mr. Africano involved and everybody involved and see what direction we'd like to go as a committee, and then get it on to the full county board. Thank you.
I like that you had a suggestion for solving. Good idea. Can we
suggest just to move it on to the finance committee to get a discussion going in finance and make the finance committee aware, every member of the finance committee aware of the issue. I think Mr. Africano has approached this and discussed it, but further discussion is needed, and let's see what direction we need to go. Thank you.
So it's a matter of putting it on the agenda for the finance committee?
That's correct.
Next week?
Thank you.
For next week?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good idea. Anything else, please? Good discussion. Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Okay, let's turn next to Animal Control, Julie Boudreau. You have her report in front of you. Is there a motion to accept her report? Ms. Parker, is there a second? Ms. Polk. Any discussion? All in favor of accepting her report, please say aye. All opposed, please say aye. The motion is carried.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning. Are there any questions on my report this morning that I can try to answer? Just a couple comments. Our registration seems to be up, doing better this year, coming in. I know usually we'll see that fluctuation up and down, and it usually, kind of catches up with itself by the end of the fiscal year. This year seems to be each month a little bit higher. You can see that it's quite a bit higher for the total of the year. Our bites, for the month, they seem to be down, but certainly they're higher for the year. We've really had a very, very active bat season way in advance of what August and September are typically your very busy bat months, and we've been responding to bat calls all summer long. You can see on the report that there were 2 tested positive animals. Those were both bats. That was for the month of July. We now stand at 4 in our county. We have 3 dogs on strict 6-month confinement. They had some type of vaccination, but for one reason or another, whether something lapsed, I believe one dog swallowed the bat. Therefore, it couldn't be tested, and the dog is put on a 6-month strict quarantine. This is through communication with the head vet down at the Department of Ag and talking with Dr. Connie Austin and IDPH. So those are, it's certainly out there. Again, the brown bat is #1 in Illinois. Those skunks, raccoons, coyotes, foxes, they still hold that potential. I just received a notice yesterday from IDPH that a kitten was found rabid in Carroll County, barn kitten. And this, of course, that's in the northwest part of the state. Last year, there was a cat also, I think, in Ogle County that was found positive. So 2 households, veterinary staff have all been started on rabies treatment, and all animals have been identified that are at potential risk, and recommendation is euthanasia for those animals. So we just want that message out there that, that prevention of a rabies vaccination is crucial, as these things really are still out there. We don't see a lot of it, but the potential is there. So we want to protect our animals, which then in turn protects our families.
Any questions for Julie? Do you have I know you have a software update, but do you have a building update or how much money you have update?
The building hasn't really moved much this summer. Our IPTIP account, you can see that is holding at the 150,000, 152. It seems like our interest is doing better than it did in the last few years. So I'm happy to see that. I know our BARC organization has right at about 100,000. So we'll continue to work, towards those fundraising measures, and our building. Every day I think I hold my breath on whether a furnace could go out or a roof needs done. The security of the building is certainly not where it should be. Again, I guess I'm looking for that opportunity to make that happen, and all I can do is keep trying to strive towards that. And I think what the community will benefit from being able to have a full resource center out there. I know it'll be a good thing when it happens.
Is it a financial goal you're trying to reach, or a time goal? Or
more of a financial goal. I mean, while we can say we have $250,000 in the coffers,
that's really a drop in the bucket to getting the infrastructure of, the sewer and the water and the electricity is all right there at the property. So that's a good thing, but it still has to be brought through the property, and you still have to build a building, and that takes more than $250,000. I wish it didn't.
Anything else?
On that?
Mr. Vickery?
Following up on the chairman's question there, what goal is there? I mean, is it 500,000? Is it 300,000? Or do we have an engineering study or an architect study? Or
We don't at this time. We have a very old one. Okay. And I certainly think that if you look at $1 million turnkey for everything, we would possibly want, may very well do that. But I think if we were closer to the 500,000 mark, we could probably get a building similar to what we have, but it would be more efficient, better laid out, more modern. And I've always said, I don't think that unless something happens, extraordinary happens, I don't think we'll have the funding to do maybe everything all at once, but to try to do it in a multi-phase, so that as we get the building and get all of our business over there, and then we can sell the property that we have. Mm-hmm. Then that replenishes some coffers, and you can work towards raising funding for the next phase.
Thank you.
Thank you. And there are some plans for continued fundraising.
Yes, there are.
Can you mention them now?
I know we have the Bark organization has their, we really enjoyed the comedian event last year, so they're planning that for next spring, and they'll be announcing those dates real soon.
Okay, Mr. Snipes, please.
I'm wondering, and I guess it's just a stretch, as to if we, in fact, had a plan, the building that we wanted to erect, if there's a way that we could utilize any of the resources from maybe like KCC, those individuals learning the trade in plumbing, those individuals at the Air Career Center, or those individuals learning how to, put up buildings and things of this nature, or respects, or individuals like the Christmas of April, where individuals will come together and put up your project once they see what it is and where you have to go with it, that in-kind, intangible, tangible labor, but in-kind resources, if we have we kind of explored those possibilities? Are they realistic?
That I can't answer. I have not explored those avenues on what may be available from the colleges. I know I've thought about reaching out to the Area Career Center just to upgrade our horse trailer, but I didn't know really at what capacity that may be possible for actually helping in the erecting of the building. But if somebody has information or insight on that, I'd be certainly happy to talk to someone about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just need to remind everyone that we do have a prevailing wage ordinance in the county. So we have to adhere to that. Even if we were to hire students, we have to pay them prevailing wage. Thanks.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of this that I'm certainly reaching back to the board and for guidance on this. I'm not an architect. I don't certainly have all the answers on this.
I know that we have a prevailing wage in place, but I do know that we did like the Christmas and Aprils where individuals volunteer. I don't know if that treads that particular water, and to what degree it would, because if that was the case, a lot of stuff that happened in Christmas, April could not have happened. It was just individuals saw a cause and they donated, and I believe the intangible benefit to that is that they would have tax write-offs or whatever they do. So I was just throwing it out for that particular purpose.
Thank you for that. Thank you. We just are so anxious to have you have a building as you are that we're just graveling.
You don't even know. Every day I think about it for 17 years.
Sorry.
And I certainly hope it's something, you know, I have hopefully have several years left here, and I hope to continue to make progress and strides and improve what the department does and what they can offer the community. And I hope when that day comes that I walk away that I can be really proud that has happened,
Right.
and that is left for the community, because the community, the animals of this community, the citizens deserve it.
Yeah. And what a nice retirement party in a new building, right?
And nice.
Thank you. for
Got a
that.
few years though.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting.
I gave you a little summary of a software update that I plan on adding to our software. I think it really offers the opportunity to get the community more engaged. And, you know, right now they don't have any opportunities to interact much with how we log their pets or their rabies. You know, people call us and they need a certificate, or they have to call us and give us a change of address, or it doesn't happen. And sometimes when we have found an animal, we're trying to find an owner, phone numbers have changed, addresses are different. A rabies certificate, we really find a lot of humor in reading these certificates as they come from the animal hospitals. I respect the vets in the animal hospitals. I love those folks. But we have to giggle a little bit when a certificate comes over and the color of the animal is warm and glowing. Yeah. So, you know, somebody will come in and will say something about their animal, and they're like, it's not that breed, or it's not that color. And what we put in the system is directly what is written on the rabies certificate. So if these folks would have an opportunity to maybe look at their own file and go, that's not correct. You know, it can get very confusing, and that's why we tell people if they're missing a pet, you need to come in and look at every animal in our facility. What you may describe as a black and gray tiger, somebody else may see, you know, brown and black tiger, a yellow lab versus a golden retriever. Some folks really don't know exactly what they have in their breeds. And so I think that having this portal that will allow people to get engaged and be able to interact will be a really nice component for the community. I also think it's going to be a lot of cost savings. We'll be able to wrap it into our website and get rid of our current website, which again, this will be more interactive with stray animals, animals up for adoption. So while there's a cost associated with adding this portal, there's a lot of costs that I'm going to be able to do away with, and there's potential savings for us in the end. So I'm really excited about this, and I wanted the committee to know.
And you're doing it.
Yes, we're working on it. We had some hurdles to work with IT. We're working through those. It's looking promising that everything should work, but until till it's really, you know, tried and true, you know, I'll certainly report back to the committee once it's live and once we're doing it.
Do you think by the end of the year, by December?
I'm hoping, yeah, in the next 30 days or so.
Good. Sounds like a great idea.
And that's all I have today.
Anything else? Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good idea. Return to old business under the Kankakee County Animal Welfare Advisory Committee. Mr. Wheeler will explain the process and the recommendation.
Yes. Basically, we get this fixed here. We had about roughly 20 applicants. Then we also had a veterinarian apply. So we had to. Normally, the chairman would bring appointments to this committee or any committee, and for that matter, and ask for approval. I wanted to include other people in that process, as to not have it be just my decision, have it be a group of people who have been involved, whether directly or affiliated with a certain animal organization. So we wanted to make it something that was open and fair and not just a decision made by one person. In order to do that, I had to come up with a scoring system, and I also wanted to make it blind. I didn't want it to be based on names. So what I did is I came up with a grid, much like we do in human resources on scoring individuals on skill sets. I looked towards what the key things that I felt were essential for a good board member. Then what I did was I initially filled out the grid with the name and the organization. If there was one that they were affiliated with, if they weren't, it was just self. And then I gave a number. I numbered each one of the applicants. So then I hid, when I gave it to the two other individuals, would be board members Parker and Dunbar. I hid the names and the organization, and they just saw a number. So we went through it and scored this individually on what we thought from a scale of 1 to 10, based on the application we had in front of us, what our assessment of that skill set was and value to the overall community. So again, there is no worse or poorer rater of human skill sets than another human being. That is statistically proven throughout any type of human resource study that's ever been done or recently been done. But this is the best system that we have right now. So running through it was experience with animal issues in shelters, volunteer board experience, whether with animal shelters or other boards, knowledge of local and state ordinances, statutes. Some of that was an assumption based on their relationship with boards or known documented demonstrations of that knowledge. Level of professionalism, that was whether it was in the application, it was in their cover letters that they would have sent with it. Social media presence, I'll get into that in a minute. Level of energy and enthusiasm, and level of experience in resolving problems. And then history of compliance to county ordinance or history of non-compliance. I wanted to make sure that board members were not habitual people who were violating ordinances out there, whether it's state or county or anything current. So the ones that I pre-filled for the committee, the evaluation committee, because they didn't have time to do this back work on their own, was the history of compliance. And by the way, everybody started with a 10, and then if there were things that were an issue, then they would go down. So I assume that everybody, as far as those two categories, everything was perfect for every applicant. And so if there was an example of a problem, then that's where the rating came down. So that and social media presence I pre-filled because they did not have the time nor the resources to be able to investigate that. Now on social media presence, I want to say, because it's important that, you know, when people talk to each other in a respectful manner, that's usually face to face. And then you get behind the keyboard, you turn into a warrior sometimes. And so I wanted to kind of do some history on all 20 applicants to see how their presence was out in the community. And I could do that on whether it's missing pet websites, whether it's, you know, their own posts, they were friends of friends or direct friends. I was able to see because as any employer will tell you, that's what they do going forward. Now they look and see how you represent yourself when you think nobody's watching or you think you're anonymous or whatever else. So as we went through that, again, it was, you know, everything had the same weight. And so we went through this process, and then all of the scores were averaged. And then we took those, and that's what you see, you know, before you today was the average of all three scores, if you will. And we had, you know, some cases where it was a tie. And so we had to basically make a decision. Are we going to have a couple of people from the same organization, or do we want to have another person that is not in the same organization? So we wanted as many diverse voices out there as possible. So that is the methodology that we went about in order to get this done. So really what form this committee takes. We also did discuss that we think it's appropriate, like all of our committees, that we have staggered terms. We draw lots, if you will, at the first meeting and have a 1-year term and a 2-year term. And basically you have 3 of those and 3 of another, and pull a number out of a hat. So it's going to be purely random. We'll determine those by lot at the first meeting. And as far as the process goes, don't know if any of the board members there has any comment about that.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As Chairman Wheeler stated, the process of selecting members for this board was done fairly, and with the cohesive group of people, this will be a very positive committee working together with a very purposeful mission to help our animals and help the county and help community shelters bring it all together. And the people that will be serving on this committee will be working hard and working together. And that's what I really appreciate after reading their applications and working with Member Dunbar and Member Wheeler. I feel that we have chosen the best committee possible to move forward, and we're anxious to start our work.
Wow, that's good news, isn't it? You want to add something to that, Joy? Joy. Second the Joy. I like seconding Joys. That's good. So
I did want to mention that those that were not selected are still more than welcome to be part of the committee. They just won't be voting members. They can still come, give input and public comment. They can still be part of the group. You know, it's when we have discussions, you know, we don't want to be exclusive, but we have to have a number, you know, and it has to be an odd number, because if you vote, you don't always want ties. So we want to make sure it is inclusive and people can come, and, you know, we would like to say we were going to run it through Robert's Rules of Order. So, you know, if you have an opinion at the beginning, maybe the committee will say, we want 2 public comment periods. We want one at the beginning and one at the end, you know, because they may hear something that they want to correct that was a misconception. So it's not meant to be, this is not a policy adopting committee. It's a committee to help vet policy and recommendations before it comes to this committee, who this is where we adopt things. So I want people to be clear on that. You can't abdicate that responsibility to any other group, but you want to make sure that if you are wanting to do something, you have other people involved in the process. Some may be aware of state law, some may not. Some may be, you know, have a particular angle or a skill set. That's why we spread it out. It's not all just cat people or dog people. There's wild animal people. You know, there's people that are diverse and work with all of them. So we tried to really think about this, and also not tell the committee what it's going to be as far as their bylaws. That was very important, was to let the committee develop those within the framework of that mission. And that's to kind of answer that question. I think it would be somewhat oppressive to walk in and say, this is what and how you're going to do it. Let's let the group determine that, knowing that they are a vetting group, a work group to take what the public wants, what maybe the county board is thinking about as far as policy, and then how to integrate that into something that might actually work for everybody. Knowing we're not always going to agree on everything.
Right.
There's going to be probably 20% of the things we don't agree on, but how do we keep, you know, maybe it starts at 50 and then we get it down to the 20, and then let's work on the 20.
So voting, there are 9 votes available, though. There are 9. That's what the odd number is. You have 6 with terms, 1 veterinarian, and two county committee members. Is that how it is? All those are 9.
Yes.
But only 6 of them have terms. The 2 committeeman persons do not.
They do not, because of the way their county board districts run.
And the veterinarian doesn't have term.
Does not have a term,
right.
because I had 1 applicant.
Oh.
So I didn't. If somebody else wants to step up, then we'll have a meeting with both vets and see if they want to work it out.
This is the vote, 9, but 20 people could be at the meeting, is what you said.
Or more.
20 or more. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Well, I like that very much.
We'll need a big
I don't
room.
know. Does the chairman get a? Mr. Snipes.
You do, actually.
Mr. Snipes.
Yeah, I took we have a copy of the applicant's brief interest, or what I call brief resume. And after reviewing them, there is a common thread, and yet it's diversified.
Yes.
The common thread is that they all love animals, and in their respective fields, whether they are vet, technician, or whether they graduated from the Pacific to in animal shelter care or something. It is diversified. So I believe that it's a right step. It creates the think tank that the county needs when we're dealing with a common interest of, you know, the well-being of animals. So I am confident after looking and reviewing that it's a good choice. And so as a result, I have no objections to the committee.
When did you meet?
The thought is to maybe have the group meet after executive committee.
Oh.
And there may be a need, because that needs to be open-ended. We don't know how long the committee is going to take with executive each month. But we wanted to not have it the same day as this, because you meet after executive and then you bring something back to community services the next month. So the ultimate goal would be to do either every other month or quarterly, as the case may be, but I'm sure there's going to be work to do on the front end. One of the first things, and it's probably going to have nothing to do with puppies or kitties. There's been people, and you'll hear about it tomorrow at PZA, there's people in the county that want to have chickens or ducks as pets, and for eggs, obviously. And it's going to go to PZA, but I thought that might be something that this committee would look at as well, because many communities allow that, because it's actually it makes it more attractive for people to want to live in those communities. Well, now we're getting it from the rural areas. And so what are those laws, and how do we make sure that the welfare for those animals are cared for, and with the respect and the rights of the neighbors involved too? So, but again, that's just an example of something that's pending, but there'll be many other things that come down the road. So as far as the timing of that, I would like to do it after executive this month. Would be the first organizational meeting, if you will.
After the county executive
After
meeting.
the executive board meeting, which
Next
is
week.
I think it's next week if we possibly could. That would be the first one that I would like to do, just to get everybody together, draw lots, and then we could determine agenda for the following month. So there won't be much business beyond drawing the lots, sitting down, talking about what the next agenda might be.
Let's go ahead.
I just want to mention, when we talk about the puppies and kitties, of course, but I am proud to say that this group covers everything from squirrels to horses, and it is a very diverse group, as Mr. Snipes said, that we're going to cover it all, and chickens too.
Chickens are people too.
Chickens are pets.
Start with Mr. Wheeler's chickens.
Hey, mine are approved in the city. I had my zoning change in the city.
The two other things I'd like to emphasize, that all the questions, I believe, that were brought up in the comment section have been answered as I see it from not writing them down, and I appreciate that. Thank you for that. And also, if I may, if some of you who have been named to the committee are in the audience, would you stand up and we can put a face to you? There they are. So would you be able to please introduce yourselves?
I'm Kathleen Voss.
Kathleen Voss.
I'm going to
Oh, that's right.
That's
right.
I'm Jennifer Cashmacki, Cat for short.
Oh, that's good, is it? Thank you for being here. And are you as positive as your chair ladies are?
Very much.
Are you? Oh, I'm glad to hear that. That's the key part right there. So thank you for coming today. Appreciate it.
I did need to correct something. We can't meet until the full board approves.
Oh.
So, we can't do that. But you can see I'm so eager to get going
I
on this.
understand. We are too.
The other was something associated with that too. I'm sure I'll think of it. Oh yeah, need a motion and a second to combine and approve.
Okay. I will gladly do that. Okay. Ms. Peters, make the motion to approve the whole group, this whole thing.
Very good.
And Mr. Snipes, the second. Any other discussion? Just joy. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say aye. Motion's carried, and thank you for your work. It was a lot of work reading out, and that was what was used, are these applications that are in the back as well as their cover letters. No, there was no formal face-to-face interview because you were trying to keep anonymity.
Yes.
Very
Good.
much so.
Okay, under new business, we do have something to talk about, Mr. Lear.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. UCCI had sent out a notification in regard to the governor's mandatory veto, in that they included information from the Illinois Statewide School Management Alliance that listed the items that are included in the mandatory veto. There are 6 items in the governor's mandatory veto in regard to school funding. I'm sorry, there were nine items. sixth item was the one that I thought was particularly important in terms of the county board and its members, and that is this change will eliminate the PTEL and TIF equalization assessment subsidies that allow districts to continue underreporting property wealth. As I mentioned in the full county board, as I looked at the information, it appears that there has been a clash set up by this mandatory veto between school funding and TIF districts, and that this is going to have some force some very difficult decisions by county board members. And I did contact a couple of local school administrators and got a report that was sent out by the Illinois Association of School Administrators that indicated in the judgment of that organization the mandatory veto would have severe consequences for a number of districts in the out years, while the first year of the impact would be only on a very few places. The Illinois Association of School Administrators indicates that in the out years, over 500 school districts out of the 800 plus districts in the state, 500 of them would be negatively impacted. So I'm still somewhat concerned about this. At this point, I'm not sure that there's a lot of action that this board could take, but I think it is something that we need to raise in terms of public awareness, because certainly if board members are going to be forced to choose between supporting TIF districts and supporting school funding, they would put in a very difficult position. The Illinois Association of School Administrators indicated that in their analysis, one of the factors that has changed from the original bill is based on the ability to pay factors, and their analysis would say that $23 billion is added to the property wealth reliance for some 574 districts. I think a number of districts in this county would have that kind of impact, and so it is something that we need to follow closely and see what should be the steps depending upon what action is taken by the General Assembly.
And just say once more, why is there a conflict between the TIF and the school? Because there would be funding based on the TIF to the school. Is that what it is? Based?
What the mandatory veto does, it includes in the formula some $23 billion in property wealth that the schools cannot access in order to fund those schools.
Because of the district, because of the
existence of the TIF districts, yes. So,
and that has been signed. That is signed.
At this point, we can only follow what's being done by the General Assembly. We don't have any authority to take any action.
But hasn't it gone back to the Assembly to override the veto, and the Senate has?
The Senate, that is the information I have. The Senate has voted to override. The House is still having to take their vote on the issue.
Mr. Snipes.
I think, isn't this a bill that they state at 1.3 million? I know will be coming to District 111 if it was supposedly passed. But my question is, Illinois is one of the few states that the schools don't have any TIF assets from, and I would probably err on the side of caution to look at those states, those many states that do allow the TIF, and see how it is incorporated. Is it on a percentage basis, or or what, but how have they made it work, and how the schools in those states have been funded. Because with Illinois, as soon as we create I don't want to say a new tax or a new umbrella to fund education, the state of Illinois funded it. Then they stated when they did the lottery that the funding will come from the lottery. But what happens was then they decreased the general, I mean, what they took out of the general fund and totally relied on that from the lottery. So as a result, you know, it's like we got a bait and a switch. And that's one of the things that we can't afford to have when we deal with education. We need a solid base so that these schools are up and running day one, and they're not having to lay off, bring back, lay off, or, you know, affect education. So what I'm looking at is I guess it would be advantageous to look at those states, because we're one of the few states that don't have the TIF tied to the school district, to see exactly what they have done and how this have worked for them. And then perhaps we can take a more educated role or a more intelligent opinion when we have to actually address this issue at some point in our term of office, to, you know, when it comes down to our desk.
Right. So, shall we put Mr. Lear in charge of educating us then?
Absolutely.
All right. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The important thing, well, this is an important issue, obviously, and it's something that I think everybody should keep an eye on. You know, it's an amendatory veto issue. It's a budget without a funding mechanism issue. So there needs to be clarity, and that there are many sides to this as well. But one thing it's not necessarily a county board issue. We are not going to see a drop in valuation because we still get the tax revenue that we're always going to get. That doesn't mean our constituents and our districts don't care about it. And we should keep an eye on it. But I just want to make sure the implications for the county board itself and the actions that we could take with our business that we do on a daily or weekly or monthly basis are not impacted.
No, that's good.
I just make sure that's clear.
That's unusual.
Yeah, it is.
We're usually impacted.
It's not a mechanism, or TIFs aren't usually, you know, Bruce's office, and he can talk on it forever, but, you know, his office handles a lot of those numbers, but we don't actually, that's not us. It's more of a pass through. He handles that for the county. So.
So I was going to ask, go ahead, Mr. Lear, and then I have a question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Chairman Wheeler, I would ask, is it possible this is going to impact attitudes of board members on future TIF districts?
Those are typically, I believe, aren't enterprise zones the only ones that we're involved in, and the TIFs are done with the municipalities.
Okay, thank you.
No. No. What would you have us do, Mr. Lear? You bring this
At this point, it's simply a matter of information.
information, so there's no action. Learning, you had said, do. Okay. Anything but joy today, I guess. Is there anything else to bring? Please, Ms. Peters. Gotcha.
Dr. Murphy is here, and I think he had a few things that he could comment on.
I hope so.
If you have questions on the mechanism, I certainly can talk to you what creates that situation.
Thank you.
Okay. What topic are you using? Are you the TIF?
So just so the board's aware why this becomes an issue at all, and Bruce could speak on this very well, but when we talk in terms of school funding, there's three sources of funding that come to school districts. There's federal funding, local funding that's primarily tax-based, and state funding. So when we're talking about the amendatory veto, we're talking about the state funding portion of that. It's not an easy calculation. It's a complex calculation that takes in many pieces. So when we talk in terms of property tax extensions that are extended to school districts, that's the property value, the EAV, times the tax rate would give us the extension. So if you have EAV either artificially increased or decreased, the rate factor in that calculation can take care of stabilizing the total dollar amounts that go to a school district. So, have I lied yet, Bruce?
That's it.
But when you look at the state portion of school funding, which for years we referred to as general state aid, the EAV is an actual number that's entered into the calculation. So when you calculate how the general state aid portion that's going to a school district, EAV or property value is a realistic number that's in that calculation. And for years, it has been an adjusted EAV for districts that are either in PTEL and tax cap county or for districts with TIF. And what that does is it allows districts not to be penalized for property value that they can't realize through the property tax process. So that's really where the conflict comes to play. Bruce?
I think we also, didn't that veto also added the Patel effect?
Correct. Yes. So basically it's treating PTEL and TIFs in a similar manner because both of those mechanisms have the ability to decrease the EAV that a district can access through property tax. And it's a check and balance because what you want to make certain is that if there's money coming from the state to fund schools or any service, you want to make sure that the local effort is being extended.
Yes.
So what this does, if you don't use adjusted EAVs, it appears as if the school district would not be accessing their full capacity to raise funds and asking the state to backfill that through a general state aid formula. When in fact, through TIFs and PTEL, it changes the total EAV that they can access to raise money through property taxes.
Yeah, very accurate. I would just add too that, you know, when you set that rate on the lower value, that rate is artificially adjusted a little bit. That,
right.
And unless the district is at their maximum rate, you know, it helps out a little bit. But yeah, they were very accurate, Dr. Murphy.
And probably the hardest part is the delay, and the delay of deciding and schools needing to open next week is probably, isn't it, part of it too?
We certainly would like to be able to plan as school districts to know what the total funding mechanism is.
Right. Appreciate both of you adding and Mr. Lair bringing the information. Thank you, Ms. Peters. Anything else?
Is that Senate, I think that's Senate Bill 1 that's been amended. So what would be the total impact? I know with District 111, if the House approves the district, I think District 111 gets like 1.3 million. But what would be the total effect to the county? Do we know as far as the revenue?
I don't have the aggregate.
Oh, okay.
And just so that the board is clear, the point that we're at in time right now is on Sunday, the Senate voted to override the veto. So now the House, so we could be talking about a moot point.
Yes.
However, this could be a piece that we want to look at if a compromise bill is being formulated. So that's where this has more relevance to all of us and the impact. You know, how do all of the municipalities and all of the funding mechanisms interplay with one another?
Sure.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the second part of that is, I'm thinking that they, if this bill is successful, that it is, I think their mindset is to make it more of an equalized distribution across the board, as far as no matter where you live, you know, you will have a equal amount as far as education versus the disparity that exists, where if you're in a better area, you get a better education. If you're in a poor area, it's more subsidized. I think that's correct.
Good discussion. Is there any other business? Someone move that we adjourn? Ms. Peters. Second? Okay, all in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, aye. Motion carried.